Hey guys, Icy here, and today we're going to talk about Rhonna Arcos, my Nightblade PvP Healer. Timestamps will be in the description below. And if you haven't read the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown, that's where I get all my names from for my characters. I'd highly recommend it. It's a fantastic read. And of course, as always, I will put a link in the description to a video I made on how I design my PvP healers. My builds are very formulaic when it comes to how I set up gear, weapons, enchants, traits, weights, and champion points. So if I don't mention it in this video, you know where to find it. Alright, so first things first, we are a vampire for this build. You don't necessarily have to be one to run the Nightblade Healer, but I did find it extremely useful given the current state of the game with all the Dark Convergence going on. Now, I do think the Nightblade makes for a pretty solid healer in PvP, and I'd say the only biggest drawback is that they don't have a self-burst heal like the Templars Honor of the Dead, or the Warden's Polar Wind, or even the DK's Coagulating Blood. And because of this, I decided to run Stage 3 on my vampire so I can benefit from the Undeath passive, reducing my damage taken by up to 30% on my missing health. It's not a requirement, but I did find it extremely useful in situations where I should have died but I didn't because I don't have a self-burst heal. Alright, now let's jump into the gear. Just like in my Templar video, we are still running Iron Blood because honestly, I just feel like I don't have a choice. It has a lot of max health, armor, and when you take damage, you have a 10% chance to turn your blood into iron for 10 seconds, reducing your damage taken by 30% and reducing your movement speed by 50%. I do combine this with the mythic item Stone Treaders, which while you're in combat, you are immune to snares and immobilizations that can be cleansed, but you cannot sprint. I like running these two together because I feel like an actual juggernaut that quite literally can't be stopped. There are moments when I feel very slow because of that self-induced snare, but not being stopped in place by immobilizations and having all that damage mitigation is really awesome. Next patch, when the Dark Convergence gets adjusted, I'll most likely be switching to running the Arcos set instead because I think it pairs really well with the Nightblade's Catalyst passive, giving me a total of 66 ultimate whenever I use the potion. For weapons and jewelry, I was running two different setups. Now, because the Nightblade mostly runs on heal over times, I wanted a support set that could help make my heal over times more potent, so I decided to go with the Sanctuary set. It has a line of max health, healing receive, and max Magicka, and the fifth line reads, increase your healing receive by 10% for you and up to 11 group members within 10 meters of you. I really like this a lot because one, it looks cool with all the green orbs that float around you constantly, and two, I noticed a lot of healing in my games. I was easily able to hit 1 million heals in a lot of my BGs. The 10 meter radius is a bit small, but I always play on top of my DPS anyway, so it's not really an issue. If you didn't want to run a support set but still wanted to boost your heal over times, I'd recommend running either Healer's Habit or Heartland Conqueror. The second set I was running was Transmutation, which has a line of Magicka Recovery, and Spell Crit, and the fifth line reads, when you heal yourself or an ally with a healing over time ability, grant them 1400 crit resistance for 5 seconds. Now, normally I choose to run Gossamer, but the Nightblade actually has their own source of major evasion, which comes from their Mirage ability, and having that 1400 crit resistance works out really well since we don't have any impen pieces, and after the changes to Malakath now being able to crit, Transmutation is much more viable to run. For skills, on our front bar we are running a Restoration Staff, and our first ability is going to be Illustrious Healing. This is a great ground targeted heal over time. I'll usually throw this down to set the stage of where the fight is going to be and just reapply if we either move too far from it or if it just runs out. The second ability is Funnel Health, which deals magic damage and heals yourself or 2 allies within 15 meters for 50% of the damage inflicted every 2 seconds over 10 seconds. I like this ability because it adds more heals to my kit. However, this ability can be dodged, which I'd say is the only negative to it for an ability that is supposed to heal you. If you wanted a burst heal, I recommend probably using Blessing of Restoration in place of Funnel Health. Now, I did also try using Crippling Grasp, but just like Funnel Health, it can be dodged, and in combination with CC immunity, I found myself not being able to immobilize my targets on a consistent basis. The third ability I typically save for something that has Major Expedition, and in this case you have 3 options: Race Against Time, Refreshing Path, and Elusive Mist. Since we are using Snow Treaders, I probably recommend using Refreshing Path so you can pair it well with Illustrious Healing. If we're not using Snow Treaders, I'd recommend using Race Against Time. I wasn't really a fan of Elusive Mist, but I did find it useful when I could just float through a Dark Convergence and not take any damage thanks to that 75% damage mitigation. But if I was running in Cyrodiil, I would definitely take Elusive Mist. The fourth ability is Radiating Regeneration. This is a solid, smart targeted heal over time that will hit 3 allies within range. I'll be honest, I feel like you're not a healer if you don't have this ability. The fifth ability is Dark Cloak. This is our main source of major resolve and also minor protection, and and gives us a nice heal over time based on our max health for over 6 seconds. This ability is getting adjusted to give a higher heal over time, but the duration is changing to 3 seconds instead of 6. Now, I was talking to my buddy Grim over at Grim's Forge Gaming, and you could certainly run Shadowy Disguise instead. Because of the lack of burst heals on the Nightblade, I often found myself stuck in certain scenarios with low HP because with all the massive amount of damage coming in, the HOTS couldn't easily overtake it like a burst heal could. If I had simply gone invisible, then I'm sure the HOTS would not have had an issue since there would be no incoming damage. Now, this is all theoretical and still needs to be tested, but worth mentioning. The front bar ultimate is Life Giver. This is one of my favorite PvP ultimates in the game since its 3 abilities merge into one, and it's got its own big heal over time over 5 seconds. During my BGs, I was treating Life Giver as my own self-burst heal when I was in those desperate types of moments. On the back bar, we are using a Sword and Board, and our first ability is going to be Refreshing Path. This pairs really well with Illustrious Healing when stacked on top of each other, with the added benefit of also providing Major Expedition to yourself and allies, and also being able to proc your Major Resolve from your Shadow Barrier passive. If you are choosing to run Refreshing Path on the front bar, then I would replace this ability with Shadow Image instead to give yourself some defensive capability, as well as inflicting minor maim on your enemies. The other reason why I keep Refreshing Path on the back bar is so I can benefit from the Dark Vigor passive, granting me 3% max health on both bars, since we have Refreshing Path on the back and Dark Cloak on the front. The second ability is a Flex Spot. Because I'm a vampire, I tried to run Hypnosis, but wasn't having much success with it because of the condition that your enemies need to be facing you. I went with Defensive Stance instead, just because it was easier, and since I don't have any self-burst heals, I wanted to be tankier on my back bar when I'm blocking. In hindsight, I think I could have actually been using Mass Hysteria instead, since that would probably be a lot easier to proc. The third ability is Healthy Offering. This is a burst heal for our allies, which actually puts a dot on yourself for 8 seconds, while also granting you minor mending for the duration. I had some reservations about the dot, but it's hardly noticeable, and the minor mending is definitely worth it since we don't have a source of major sorcery that we are using. And we're also benefiting from the Magicka Flood and Soul Siphoner passives, since we have Funnel Health on the front and Healthy Offering on the back. The fourth ability is Energy Orbs. This is a staple in my PvP healer builds. It's a fantastic team ability that heals and provides his synergy for resource sustain. The fifth ability is Mirage, which grants us Major Evasion and Minor Resolve for 26 seconds. Dark Convergence or not, I would always recommend having this ability on your bar, and because we have our own source of Major Evasion, it gives us more variety to run another light armor set that isn't Gossamer. The back bar ultimate is Soul Siphon. Now, this ability is pretty awesome. I found myself almost exclusively using it during my BGs because it'll give myself and allies a really big heal over time for 4 seconds, and also provide the Soul Leech synergy, allowing for your teammate to deal magic damage and heal based on the damage dealt from the synergy. The ultimate cost is only 162, which is pretty low for my back bar ultimate standard, since I would normally run something else like Sturdy Horn or Barrier, but Soul Siphon, totally worth it. Alright, so that is the end of the video. Despite the lack of self-burst heal, I definitely consider the overall healing output on the Nightblade to be top tier, and certainly blows the DK out of water for heals. And as usual, the class is fun to play and different, so if you want to try something new, I would definitely recommend the Nightblade Healer. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and with that, I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.